Welcome to Big Closet, Small Planet, made possible with generous support from the CNA Foundation, the H&M Foundation, the Relander Foundation, and Tencel. This podcast is produced in collaboration with Eco Textile News, and I'm today's host, Mike Schrager. So you are all probably familiar now with the latest report from the IPCC, which caused dramatic headlines such as, "We have 12 years to limit climate change catastrophe," or "We only have till 2030 to stem catastrophic climate change," etc., etc. And although headlines like these lack a bit of nuance, given the complexities of climate change, they are right to imply that we are playing a very dangerous game right now. We don't know for sure how increased warming will affect the planet, but increasing evidence suggests that warming of just a few degrees can disrupt and even destroy the delicate ecosystems that provide the basis for our life support. In the worst case, we may even trigger processes that accelerate warming beyond our control. We don't know. Do you want to find out? Until recently, the apparel and textile industry was not highlighted as one of the major contributors to global warming. But more recent studies contend that the industry's contribution could be anywhere between 2 and 10% of the total global climate emissions. 2% is significant. 10% is alarming. And given that the world needs to reduce our emissions to zero, or even go to negative emissions by 2050, all reductions are crucial, aren't they? Not so long ago, the H&M Group committed to publicly becoming climate positive by 2040. Given the current situation I just mentioned, this is a very important commitment to make publicly. So what has happened since the company made this public commitment? And what can we learn from H&M's insights and experiences in order to help the entire apparel industry to reduce its emissions in line with a 1.5 degree warming pathway? Today I am here with Kim Hällström, responsible for climate and water at H&M, to tell us more. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so hip and positive. I was thinking...
Trying my best.
Yeah, I was thinking, how is it that you ended up with possibly the hardest job at H&M?
Well, I've been in the company for 11 years. 11 years is actually quite short within H&M. There's a saying in H&M that when you arrive, you are there for less than 1 year or you stay for life. That's normally how we see it. But I have done a journey within the company. I've been working with everything from accounting systems, expansion to new markets, logistics and warehousing. But now I'm focusing fully on climate and water. And personally, it has been about feeling purpose for what I'm doing. I've had my eyes on the sustainability department for many years, but I have never seen any openings that kind of clicked for me. And then when this came up, it really felt spot on.
Oh, good. Well, let's get into the technicalities of H&M's climate impacts, so we provide the basis for this discussion. Can you explain in the most basic way for our listeners what the H&M Group's climate impacts are, and I guess where in the value chain they can take place?
Yeah, I believe I can. So we include the whole value chain when we talk about our climate impact. Our own operation is quite small in comparison, but the biggest emission by far comes from our supply chain. And by that I mean raw materials, fabric productions, and garment productions. That stands for about 66%. And then in our goal setting, we also take responsibility for our customers, and where we see about 21%. And that's when I'm talking about that, I mean use of washing machines, dryers, and also end of life. So jumping back to the supply chain, then these 66% that comes from energy production. Either it's electricity produced on the grid, usually quite dirty coal-based grids in the Far East countries where we have our production, or it is the heat that is produced also in the factory itself, usually through these big boilers that can burn coal or waste or wood or similar things. And that is, of course, to mainly to generate moisture for the production.
So is that, Kim, just to be clear, is that in what they call sometimes wet processing when you're dyeing and finishing the clothes? Is that where that takes place, or is there a broader area?
It's also steam. The steam was the word I was looking for. Yeah, so there's a lot of steam used in the production.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so often people who are not experts in this field, they think about fibers being cultivated like cotton in the fields. There's not as much climate emissions directly from, for instance, cotton cultivation, is there? But there is more emissions, as you're describing it, when you start to turn that cotton into a fabric and dye it. That's where a lot of these processes are energy intensive. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I can be specific if you want to. We have 9% on the raw materials production. We have 46% on the fabric production and 10% on the garment manufacturing. So that is how it's divided.
Okay, so that tells a lot where the majorities are.
Yeah.
So, given those of your impacts, and how many tons of carbon do you produce or create now?
We have a total of 18.2 million tons. And to set that in perspective, I read up just yesterday on how much Sweden as a country is emitting, and that's 65 tons. So 65 million tons. Thank you.
I was hoping it was 65 tons.
No, I wish. No, so the numbers we're working on is really, really huge, and it's a huge commitment that is serious for us.
So 18 million tons of carbon dioxide or equivalent.
Equivalent, yes.
Is produced by your businesses, the H&M Group, per year, is that, or in total?
That is per year, and it's then all the scopes we're talking about. If we have scopes 1, 2, and 3, if we want to be technical, and scope 1 and 2, which means own operation, that just stands for 0.4% of our emissions. So that is clear that our direct impact over our emissions are quite limited.
Because scopes 1 and 2 are what H&M directly owns or operates.
Correct.
And then all the other emissions are, where the majority are in the supply chain where you source services or materials or products.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And again, you said, just to emphasize though, customers using or caring for the clothing seems to be a quite significant amount, more than I would have thought. How much did you note there?
It's 20% on customer use, and it's about 1% for end of life. And I mean, this is what I personally think makes our goal more or most ambitious of our competitors. Taking responsibility also for the customer use, it's unique, at least when we came out with the goal. Now we see more companies doing it.
So tell me then what it means to be climate positive, because you say now that you are a leader in the industry. You have more ambitious goals potentially than others in the industry, and we'll talk more about that. But part of that is committing to this climate positiveness. So what is that? How do you define it?
We define it that we want to reach climate positivity by reducing more greenhouse gas emissions than what our whole value chain emits, while still continue to grow as a company. So we're talking about absolute reduction numbers.
So to do more than you actually create, to reduce more than you create.
Exactly.
Right. By the way, I think we just coined a new term, climate positivity. we should riff on that at some point.
Copy that.
Copyright that. Okay, so you've committed this company, H&M Group, to do more than your share. Why is that?
Well, the decision, I think it has been a long journey for us. We've been a value-driven company from the start. It's been an internal awareness raising also. When we saw that things were not looking good in these markets where we were buying. We started to understand that in the 90s. Then we started to focus on the social questions firstly. Child labor was an issue back in the 90s. It's not any longer. I think it was in 2007 we took the next step, including water in our as a big focus for us. We engaged with WWF also to make this on a global scale, and then in 2014 we integrated climate as the next step, and now we're also looking into biodiversity to be the next pillars of our sustainability work. Of course, it's all connected, but as a company, you need also to diversify. You need to have different resources on these different matters.
So it feels like it was a natural evolution.
Exactly.
Okay. And are there clear business sort of rationale, business case reasons for doing this as well?
I would say absolutely, because from a long-term perspective, it's about survival of the company. The customers' expectations are changing. The customers gets more aware of what they're buying. Our business models needs to be updated through, for example, re-commerce. We're starting this A-found company that is buying goods that other textile companies doesn't want anymore. So and all of these small things adds up. There's not one answer to this problem we're having now. We need to have many answers.
So give me some, if you can, list some business reasons. And I don't know if you have articulated them, but what could really happen if you don't address this?
For example, customers could be turning their back on us. That's the foremost and biggest risk we're facing. If you look at it from the customer perspective, we have other more hands-on challenges in the supply chain, but the customer, all along as the customer gets more aware of what is going on, they will do better and better decisions where they want to buy, how they want to buy, if they want to rent clothes, stuff like that. And we need to be on those markets in the future to be able to continue our growth. We can't just go on in our old way of working.
I'm thinking of the supply chain. Are there any risks in the supply chain that would cause you to prepare for this?
There are many risks in the supply chain. We have done this task force on climate-related financial disclosure, and it's basically a model to see not only how H&M impacts the world around it, the climate and the environment. It's more flipping that around and saying, okay, how will the climate and the changes in climate actually affect H&M? And that's quite a big job or analysis that we have done.
And so what does the analysis tell you?
Well, it's basically, we divided it into two parts. It's the production side and the distribution side, and then the other part is more of a customer-focused part. And
so specifically, what have you identified?
The biggest risk, or one of the biggest risks, I would say, is raw material, supply of raw material. Cotton is our, we still use that in almost all of our products. It's the biggest source of the biggest product we're using. We see drought coming in these countries where you're producing this. It will raise prices for our raw material. It will also decrease the amount of cotton available on the market. And it's not only a price matter, it's cotton will not be sufficient for everyone.
Okay. So raw materials, there is a climate risk involved with raw materials.
100%. And then you have the actual production then. It could be extreme weather, closing down areas, factories for months and months. There can be challenges to also grow other crops in certain regions, increasing the need for transports. It could be heat waves also, to put it on a social perspective. It could be difficult, maybe not to work in the factories, because then we could have coolers. Of course, that would be an energy challenge again. But the people could maybe not get to work because it's too warm. And if they don't have groundwater, they can't live there, and then we can't get the workers. So that's a big thing. And then lastly, the third biggest thing we've seen is, of course, the distribution or the logistics for our garments. We're quite dependent on a few hotspot or transits, which is if for example flooded or something happens to these locations, we're in trouble. Basically, it's difficult to replace these big hubs with other. You can't really create a airplane bridge out of it. Of course, it would be a disaster for climate, but it's also not possible.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So those are very concrete risks that can emerge from a warming climate.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that you've identified from a clear business risk or business opportunity side?
Yeah, on the consumer side, then you have, of course, many of our stores are located close to the water. Also, not so far above the ocean level. I mean, we have almost 5,000 stores, so it shouldn't happen to many stores at the same time, but it is a risk in certain areas for sure, and we need to highlight that, and we need to mitigate that risk somehow.
Okay.
And then I would also like to highlight the Greta effect.
Okay.
The effect that people are really questioning: should we have this amount of produced garments? Do I need to buy 10 shirts? Can I do it with reuse? Can I buy recycled and so on?
So there's an emerging consciousness about consumption, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, since, as I said in the beginning, we always try to be really close to the customers and listen to what they're saying about us, about what they want. And then we, as a company, we need to adapt to continue to prosper.
Okay. So there are clear business risks and some business opportunities you see related to climate. You've identified a few of those. Now you have to go about this incredible task of moving H&M to being climate positive by 2040, right? So you say, here are our impacts, here are the reasons why we have to do this, and now you need to put in a plan to make it happen. What are the pillars of that plan as you see them today?
Yeah, so we have 3 pillars, I would like to call it, in our strategy. We have energy efficiency, basically focusing a lot of not using energy. The best energy is, of course, the one that is not used. We have different energy programs in our supply chain that we hope to get every supplier on board. We are also, of course, focusing on energy efficiency in our scope 1 and 2, but that's a different thing. The second pillar is renewable energy, and we want it to be 100% renewable. We are at 96% in our own operation, but of course the big battle is in scope 3. And there we're looking at creating incentives for the suppliers to put solar on their roofs, to put solar heating on their facilities somehow. And that can be done through different ways. And the last pillar, is of course what we call climate resilience. And that means that we understand that if we do all these, if we succeed with all the other activities that we have set for us, we will still end up with unavoidable emissions. And these unavoidable emissions needs to be offset somehow. And we are then using the gold standard organization to see what we're going to focus on then. But the priority here, the thing is for us, and I would like to highlight this, that we need to first get rid of our emissions before we offset what we can't get rid of.
Okay, so you're focused on your own absolute reductions.
Yes.
That is your value set. That's your
Because we have limited
principle.
amount of resources. We have a limited amount of money. And if you ask me, should I put the money on offsetting or decreasing future emissions from our value chain, I would say decrease our own emissions 10 times out of 10. Then at some point in the future, we will come down to the levels that is kind of, we have done everything we can, and the cost for the rest would be so high that then it makes sense to start doing these offsets.
Okay, so we're getting into some of the nuances, but I want to just emphasize again, as I hear you saying it, you have a strategy that includes doing efficiency gains, going over to renewable energy, and then building a climate resilience approach, which includes offsetting, but I guess that's connected to shoring up that the forests, for instance, which collect a lot of carbon, are robust and resilient, that there's a buffer in the system.
Yeah, you could do, there are many ways of doing offsets. You could, for example, build renewable energy plants. IKEA does that. That's one way of doing it. You could also protect standing forests, basically working with working to not deforestation, to protect deforestation from happening. We have one project in Cambodia where we are, in short, paying rangers to protect the standing forests, and hopefully that will somehow then come out to a good model for us to get these carbon credits in the long run. But you could also use, for example, planting trees. I guess that's the most common knowledge when you talk about offsetting. That's planting trees somewhere. There are different challenges with all these methods. It's different pricing on all these methods, and it's a complex reality where we end up. And we don't have all these answers right now. That's what we're working in, and we will work for many years from now.
Okay, so if you look at that being your strategy, there's a lot of nuances and challenges. I want to hear about some of them again. My question to you is, given your current strategy and your current targets, right, are we expecting H&M to achieve these given where you are now?
Good question, but I think I have to answer like this. We have official targets, and we have unofficial targets. And if we only look at the ones that we have gone official with, we will not make the goal of being climate positive in 2040 right now. We have to add many more of them to really take that huge leap that is needed. I've forecasted, there are different models on forecasting, and I would say that in best case, maybe we could end up somewhere around 5 million tons and 10 million tons, close to 2040.
Per year.
Per year,
yeah.
And of course, then I also have accounted for our continued growth. If we don't grow, it will be easier for us, but then we will make less money, and there will be less money for sustainability. So we need to grow as much as possible
in order to finance your climate work.
Exactly.
Interesting. It's an interesting challenge for the whole industry. What have you now learned about these challenges? Because what you're telling me, as someone who's concerned about the planet, knows that H&M is a global leader, and you're telling me, we're not getting there with the current approach. We need to do a lot more. So quickly identify some of these challenges that you think are preventing you from achieving that. And I'm imagining there's both challenges internally within the organization and probably even more importantly, externally, which drive investment in this. So if you just list a couple things internally and a couple things externally.
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't agree that the internal challenges are smaller than the external. I mean,
are you disagreeing with me?
I'm sorry about that. It will not happen again.
Very good.
No, but we have 170,000 people with different opinions and different perspectives and priorities. It's very difficult to get everybody to see things in the same way and prioritize the same thing. And I think in one way, you shouldn't strive for that either. You should just strive for a basic understanding. And sustainability needs to be part of everyday decision making. It should not be an extra layer that you put on your normal, your daily work. It must be totally integrated. And that is a journey that we have just started, I would say. And there's also a big difference on our different departments, our different functions and brands. They are on different levels, and they have different possibilities also to be contributing to this long-term target. But this is super focus for us now to get goal-setting strategy, not only on this global scale where I'm sitting and like talking about everything in the big picture. It needs to come down to the nitty-gritty where everybody looks at their daily work and really integrates the sustainability.
So it's internal challenges, it's not integrated into what people do naturally. You have competing goals, maybe lack of internal incentives.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we have challenges also with data, both availability of data to make decision, but also accuracy of data from the suppliers then. So, I mean, these 18.2 million tons that we're talking about now, that's, I would call that a good guess.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we accept that and start working instead of waiting for 5 years to get the really good data and then start working.
Okay.
It's better to be honest. Many of these data is estimates. We might need to revise it later, but then we will do it also backwards, and we will be, it's about honesty and transparency.
Okay, so those are some internal factors.
Yeah.
Can we look at the external ones? What you mentioned? I think you mentioned governments earlier, but tell me, what are the things that externally, or maybe they're a mix of both?
I think it's a mix of both. In the basic business model that we're having now is that what has made us so successful is that we are very flexible. We can, for example, if quality starts decreasing from a certain supplier, we can just change that supplier quite quickly. We don't need to invest years and years in doing that. We just go somewhere else, and that is very important for our core business. Challenge now is, of course, when you talk about sustainability and when you talk about energy production, you talk about huge investments that we want the suppliers to do on their facilities. And these investments usually have a payback time of, in best case, 7 years maybe, depending on which country and how high the electricity bill is. But it could also be up to 15 years. So there we are standing with, on the one hand, asking them to do this because we think they are an important supplier for us, and then they come back to us and ask, sure, we could do that, but then you would have to promise us to stay with us for 7 or 15 years. And that would be probably a big no-no from us right now, because that totally takes away the flexibility. It locks us down. What happens to the price later? This complexity is it's a part of our core. It's very difficult to get around, and it's also, I would say, a risk for us, because if we the risk will increase. If, let's say that Bangladesh, for example, Bangladesh is already under the sea level. What if we get an agreement to stay there for 15 years with all the suppliers, and then in 10 years the country is beneath water? Then we would have a very difficult financial and legal discussions there.
Wow, so
that's an extreme example.
Potential
but just to make it
conflict.
super clear. Yeah.
No, good example. So what about government? I'm thinking about your renewables, trying to get governments to go over to renewable energies, or sorry, not governments in particular, but to get factories. If there's a government my understanding is certain governments have control over the energy markets or
Yeah.
have committed to coal-based energy for a long time into the future. Is that an external challenge, how to work with governments?
It's a huge challenge. As you said, certain markets are actually increasing their coal usage, and I would say that part of it is because China is putting out cheap coal. Maybe they are not so interested in using this coal themselves, and then it increases the usage in near-lying countries. Also, you have governments owning the right of selling electricity or energy, and of course it's a monopoly, to be fair, and they make a lot of money on it. They don't want renewable energy to be produced on site because that will decrease the money they get in. So we need to work with decreased easier ways of importing in these solar panels in these markets. We need to work on getting local factories up to produce in the country so that we don't need to ship it there.
Okay.
Yeah, tariffs and stuff like that. I really believe that on the government level, that's where things can happen on a scale that we need right now.
Okay, so government is very important but very challenging.
Super important and very challenging. But I also think that when we succeed, for example, if we could somehow manage to persuade China to just adjust their rules and mindset a little bit, which they're already on their way to do actually. If we can enhance that, maybe I should say, then we could also see huge benefits, because it's the electricity coming off the grid in these markets that is key for our success of reducing our future emissions.
Okay, so you mentioned this challenge of the longer payback times and the need for flexibility. You mentioned governments having monopolies or control over the energy grids or energy strategies. You've mentioned, sort of alluded to the issue of, in all this is financing. Where's the money going to come from? Is that an issue?
Now you're coming down to the core here, because we're not owning these factories. If we were owning these factories, we probably wouldn't have money to do all the investments ourselves anyway. So it's all about financing, I would say. We need to create incentives for investors to go in and do the investments in these markets. And I mean, we could do that in different ways. For example, we could give them longer contracts, for example. We could also be like a bear, how do you say, we could go in the front of helping these companies that wants to come into the country. We can highlight and connect investors to these companies that have the knowledge, but maybe are not as global as us. They can use the platform that we can give them a platform, and we can connect them to investors. Another thing that I'm interested in is green bonds. Green bonds is, I think, also a good way going forward to financing these investments.
What's a green bond, very quickly?
Very quickly, the setup that I'm talking about then is that you go out to investors and ask for money, and then you direct those money specifically to a certain project or a certain sustainability area. So that could be used, for example, borrowing money to suppliers with a very low interest rate, so that their business case becomes easier. Okay. Then it doesn't affect our cash flow, and it makes it a win-win-win situation.
Okay, is this something that you're looking at actively?
Yes.
Okay. And then I recall, since I also work in this space a little bit, I recall that there are other challenges in terms of how you as a company, given you're taking risk, you're being leaders, get credit for what you do. That, there's certain things that international standards would say, yes, good job, and other things that say, oh, you're not allowed to do that, but could hinder development. Can you give an example of that?
Specify what you mean.
I'm thinking of certain offsetting
Oh, right.
standards
Yeah.
and how they affect your ability to protect the forest.
Sure. I mean, I mentioned the project in Cambodia, where we, of course, we want to create good business case also for doing the right thing, basically, and we are looking into and hoping to find models where we can initiate projects, set up projects so that they are running with full protective areas, and then we can hand over to investors that is interested in a yearly return, but have much more money than us. So we can multiply these projects by 10 or more. And of course, we want to have something for that. We're not after the money in this case. In this case, we're after the carbon credits, so that we basically can buy cheap carbon credits. It's a business case. So we're trying to make business sense out of that too.
Okay.
The alternative would, of course, be to just buy carbon credits as other companies are doing. But then there's no reason for us to initiate these projects.
Okay. Right. You don't have to drive.
No, we would actually pay more than other companies then. So there's no point in overpaying.
Okay.
That's
so there's both a financial reason to do it yourself as well as an impact reason.
Yeah.
That you need these things to scale up.
Absolutely. And we need always to remember that we need to make business sense of these decisions. And we need to connect everything. We're also looking at an internal carbon pricing fund.
Okay, so you talked about internal challenges earlier,
Yeah.
and external challenges. You've talked about some solutions, and one of them for the internal piece is that you want to price carbon internally to give some incentive for better behavior?
Exactly. Yeah. Better behavior sounds like teaching a child how to sit at the table.
Sorry.
But it's about awareness rising, and it's about putting the cost for carbon where the decision is taken. Today, for example, we put all the transport emissions in logistic because that makes sense. It's easy to do that. You have an airplane going, you have a truck going. Oh, that must be logistic. But what we're missing out on is who took the decision of putting this on an airplane. That's not logistic. So what carbon pricing can do is that if we do this full mapping of the whole company, where is the decision being taken that creates this emission, then we can go back to the source of the emission and work there, instead of, as we're doing now, just pushing logistic to decrease their emission, which is very difficult for them because they are just acting on orders from others. And I think most companies are having similar challenges, I would say, and I would really like to see that this mindset changes. Now, I know that there are many challenges with having internal carbon pricing, like taxation problems, moving money between countries. It's close to impossible, I would like to say. So I'm really looking into how other companies are doing it. Also looking into the option of having it as a virtual currency.
Okay.
It will not have the same impact, but the mapping process would be the same.
So those of you listening who are doing this already or have ideas, you should write in to Kim or to us.
Please contact
So
me.
this is cutting edge in terms of how you work with carbon pricing internally to shift things.
Yeah.
Okay. You talked about other solutions, so green bonds. You alluded to working with foreign governments in a way that would help address this issue with monopolies or long-term commitments to fossil fuels. You talked about financial solutions to address this issue, that suppliers need to have a good business case. That was partly green bonds and partly maybe some other things. Is there anything else that you would do if you could wave a magic wand, right, and wish for anything right now? Is there anything else you would do?
Well, many of these things I have been talking about is, of course, theoretically so far. We haven't done them yet, so I would like to execute on the things I've talked about. But to be more specific, what I really want to see is, of course, harder regulations. We're pro regulations as long as it's neutral from a competitive perspective.
Okay.
Personally, I would like to see carbon taxes on a national level, maybe on an EU level.
Okay.
And that's where my magic wand would end up.
Interesting. I hear that quite often.
Okay.
So
Do you believe in it, Mike?
Do I believe in it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I definitely believe in some way pricing in most likely a tax. But the question is, how do you implement it when you can't do it on a global level?
Right.
And so, seeing how nations can do it without jeopardizing their industry, I guess, is the key. But I haven't heard anyone propose yet. So we're looking into a podcast on that one. How does that work? Let's do a lightning round, because now that you've talked about very interesting challenges for H&M as a group. One of my thoughts here, I'm sitting back and I'm going, H&M, which is committing to this impressive leadership goal, is even telling me that right now, given the projections, you can't make it. You need a lot of other things to happen. You may be optimistic that those things can emerge over time, but they need to happen for you to get there. And then I'm thinking, even if H&M, right, does this, if, as you implied, if other companies or other industries aren't doing the same thing, you achieve climate positive according to the standards, but no one else does, in the end, we haven't really solved the problem, have we? So I'm wondering, is it H&M's task also, given that you want to be leaders, to share your knowledge and to drive change at the industry level?
Absolutely. I've been traveling. When I'm traveling with our suppliers, visiting factories and so on, it's so obvious that it needs to happen on a much bigger scale and than only ourselves. We're often talking about making 25% this. We're going to be more efficient here. We're going to have less emissions there. And then when you visit these places and you see 100 factories lying beside each other, and you see our water, of course, for example, our water plants letting out quite clean water, and then you see 10 factories just on the side just pouring out this black mass of dirt. You really understand that even if we get 50%, 70% better, it will not improve anything. And it's the same also with climate, of course. It needs to happen on a huge scale, and cooperation is the only way it can happen.
So then if you answer yes, no, or maybe to these questions to see where we are.
Yes, no, or maybe.
Yes, no, or maybe.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you working with other companies to address this?
Yes.
Who do you admire? That's not a yes, no, or maybe.
No, that's very
do you admire IKEA?
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Are your business partners aware of the urgency of this?
Maybe.
Is the Persson family on board on this?
Yes.
Are your shareholders on board on this?
Maybe.
Are your colleagues on board on this?
Yes.
Okay, you hesitated. Are your colleagues who are not in the sustainability departments aware of this?
No.
Okay, so they don't necessarily have the same sense of urgency.
No.
Can profit making and meeting these climate targets go together?
Yes. It's so difficult when I can't continue.
You're
but
not allowed.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Go on.
Do we need completely new business models?
Yes. That was the continuation. Thank you.
Current business models don't allow us to achieve that. Is that?
I would have to say maybe then.
Okay, that's a maybe. You mentioned this, but I guess you believe in regulation
Yes.
if it's the right type of regulation.
If it's competition neutral.
Okay, is this a state of emergency, do you think? Are we in a global state of emergency around climate?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you knew this, Mike.
Okay. All right. Those are the questions I had for you. Are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? That's not a yes, no, or maybe
no,
question.
Again, and I'm trying to be realistic. I am very pessimistic about the speed and the direction we're heading right now. We're already at 1 degree, and the difference, if we don't stop at 1.5 degree increase of global warming, we're in trouble. I mean, we in so many ways. On the other hand, on the other side, I'm positive in that way that when transformation takes place, when big transformation has taken place historically, at some point you reach a tipping point, and the speed at which things happen after that tipping point is nothing that we can foresee. So I'm just hoping that this tipping point is coming quite soon, because if it does, I'm optimistic that it will go much quicker than anyone can anticipate.
And I'm guessing you're inspired by potentially the developments in other industries, the electric car, the renewable energy.
Yeah.
Do you have any heroes in that area?
I'm a total Elon Musk nerd.
Are you?
Yes, I am. But of course, he has his challenges too, for sure. I'm not sure I would like to work for him, and he might not be HR friendly. But what he does for humanity is amazing.
So, Kim, I want to thank you for being honest in presenting the ambitions and the clear challenges, because I see this as a case study for the whole industry to understand that we need to sort these things out that you've identified if we're going to even have a chance.
Yeah.
And your transparency about this is crucial to be stimulate the discussions and the collaboration that is needed. And if I was to just weigh in on this, it sounds to me like we need to step up our game around climate dramatically, because we're asking too much of even if an influential company like H&M to pull the weight for an entire industry. And you all need to find ways to make your businesses work within this climate neutral world. So I'm guessing there needs to be a discussion from the most powerful organizations and companies and investors to step this work up. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll revisit this in a year from now to see what kind of progress you've made, and hopefully a great deal.
I hope so too. And I just want to highlight that if someone feels the urge of reaching out to me, I'm there. I'm very easy to access, and I'm very pro cooperation also.
He just sits by his cell phone waiting for you to call.
You made me turn it off now. What if someone's calling right now?
Yeah, I didn't give out your number.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, for having me.
And for you listening, as he says, Kim, we really want to hear what you think. So don't hesitate to reach out to us with feedback, comments, or ideas for future podcasts, or this issue in particular, which is, as Kim agrees, a state of emergency. You can reach us at bigclosets@sustainablefashionacademy.org. We'll talk to you next time.